Please remember to leave a like, a comment, share the video about, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Thank you. Well, isn't this just fantastic? Captain's Log, Supplemental. On occasion we like to induct entire families into the halls of injustice, and when we do this, we jam those buggers into one cell that we make even smaller as a treat to them and for our own personal entertainment. No privacy, folks. You brought this on yourselves. Hello everyone, welcome to the halls of injustice. Today we welcome inmate numbers 181.1, 181.2, 181.3 and 181.4 to the ISO cubes. Yes, we have 4 people. This is quite exciting, folks. We don't usually induct entire families, which you will have noticed from the title. Yes, it's a thing the Captain's Log should have been a dead giveaway. Rarely do we ever encounter within this series an entire family creating a network that they can then use to operate their criminal activities. It's always amusing when it happens because when we've heard about it in the news, the swerve is who the person who is in charge of it is. This criminal network was more commonly known as a gang. Members of it included Stephen Leyson, Samson Leyson, Andrew Jenkins, Richie Coleman, Emma Culver Roberts, and Lynn Leyson. I don't have images for all 6 people, I only have the images for the Leyson family. Their activities took place in Carmarthenshire and Pembrokeshire, along with parts of Swansea. It's not much of a network, but when one carves out their own little slice of what they consider to be heaven, this to them can seem like a much larger deal than it really is. However, as what we're going to be discussing today concerns things that are under UK law considered illegal, the prison sentences seem apt. Well, for all that bother to be caught. As far as who the Leyson family are, I can't really tell you too much. There aren't many articles giving us much in the way of information, but I will present what is known. The family, the Leyson family, lived on a compound down a narrow country lane in Carmarthenshire, far away from prying eye. If you looked at the site, it had cabins, sheds, some vehicles, warning signs of CCTV cameras and guard dogs. The place looked nonchalant. You would never think to look twice. This is where the family operated a business that was, well, illegal, obviously. We're not going to be covering something that's legal here, are we? Families who lived nearby had reported feeling very uncomfortable around the Leysons. There were rumours in some quarters, including rumours of weapons, concerns about vehicles linked to the address being driven at speed, and over time, the Leyson family had come to the attention of the local police in connection with a drug-dealing operation that spanned the entire of southwest Wales. Eventually, enough information was gathered that the police were allowed, because you have to get permission, to act on these suspicions and to raid the property with a search warrant in the early hours with search teams and sniffer dogs because they knew what they were looking for. They were looking for Class A and Class B narcotics. On the 27th of October 2021, the police raided the property. Later that day and into the next, they carried out a full-scale search of the small holding and its various buildings, shed, storage units and caravans. Because it didn't look like an old farm, it looked like a site. It was a bit of a mess. Let's go with that, but again, you wouldn't make it a point to look at it twice. There's a reason for that. Generally, people don't stare at things that look untoward, also meh, right? And there's a reason for that as well. To operate the best kind of illegal activities, realistically, you want to hide in plain sight. In this instance, they removed themselves from society and lived away from it, but lived away in such an obscure way that no one thought to look twice. But the behaviour of those within the family and those who were a part of the family's activities didn't help that. The reckless driving would have been what would have started it. The police dogs and the police found 290 grams of cannabis in a dog shed, nearly 1 kilogram in a suitcase in a nearby field, and a further 120 grams in a bathroom. When the police dog called Billy, yes, that was the dog's name, was searching the property, was then taken for a break in one of the fields, he picked up a scent and in a green plastic bag hidden in a bush found something else, not cannabis. I usually call it sherbet. If you don't know what that is at this point, you're an idiot. but so are the people who decided to hide it in a green plastic bag and hide it in a bush thinking that would deter a police dog. In total, the sherbet that was found was worth just over £60,000. The cannabis, a quarter of that, at just over £15,000. But that's not all they found. They also found a 9mm semi-automatic handgun, an Italian version, hidden in a wall cavity on a small holding, a cabin basically. Additionally, £17,000 in cash was seized by the police. It was stated that that money was claimed to have been from a house sale. Now all of this was then taken back to the police station and analysed, the results of which implicated the Leyson family, Andrew Jenkins, and Richie Coleman. Andrew Jenkins I have yet to mention, and I'd mentioned Richie Coleman as one of the initial names that we weren't inducting but we really should include as well. Richie Coleman's DNA was found on items in the suitcase and on the bands holding the cash together. Stephen Leyson had denied the handgun was his, adding that he intended to hand it in to the police and that he had no knowledge of the sherbet and that the cannabis was for his own personal use. I'm sure his argument was it was in the bathroom, therefore it was personal use. He and his wife were the ones that claimed the £17,190 in cash that was seized was from a house sale, but without any paperwork to confirm it, that is a little sus. When one doesn't keep accurate records of things like house sales, yeah, it's not going to look like actual legitimate business being dealt, is it now? When the property was being raided, Culver Roberts, who was in a relationship with Richie Coleman at the time, walked into the bedroom with Richie Coleman shouting at her to take the rap for the drugs, as he at the time was subject to a suspended sentence order. Hello everyone, Future Meg here. I forgot to include this detail about what a suspended sentence order is. Suspended sentence are custodial sentences where the offender does not have to go to prison provided that they commit no further offences and comply with any requirements imposed. They are used only when a custodial sentence is no longer than 2 years. A suspended sentence is considered both a punishment and a deterrent. If you breach a suspended sentence order, the original sentence for the earlier crime that got you that in the first place is automatically imposed. Emma Culver Roberts was later arrested on the 22nd of March because of an examination of their phone showed they'd been selling cannabis and sherbet. It should be noted that all were held on remand for the most part. Now I do believe I have adequately conveyed who they are, and what they've done. What happened next gets interesting. It gets interesting because they're all guilty, obviously, but how each one of them handles it is different, and I like that. In May of 2023, a 2-week trial took place at Swansea Crown Court. What I thought I'd do is go through the individuals who were on trial and how they were defended. For example, David Leafley defended Stephen Leyson and maintained there was no evidence that he had not found the gun and was going to hand it in to the police, further saying that his client had been suffering from mental health difficulties at the time of the offences and was a hopeless sherbet user, but had now kicked the habit. Being in prison for a number of years would certainly do that. Samson Leyson was not at the farm during the week, so did not have the same role in the operation as his parents, courtesy of his barrister Kevin Seal, who had said that Samson, who was a promising boxer, would seek to use his time in custody to his benefit and would seek out the support which is available to him. Andrew Jenkins' representative, James Hartson, didn't bother defending himself and simply said with his client's permission he should receive an immediate prison sentence because Andrew Jenkins' time on remand had alleviated any concerns previously stated about alcohol or drugs, and that Andrew Jenkins had become a mentor in prison and spent most of his time in the workshop leaning, yeah that's what it says, multi-skills that would allow for him to return to legitimate employment upon his release. Representing Richie Coleman, Hannah George, said the defendant experienced a traumatic event that led to him using drugs and being in debt. That debt spiraled out of control, and that he had become involved in the Leyson's operation to work off that debt. In the case of Lynn Leyson, there isn't much information concerning how she was defended. Same can be said for Emma Culver Roberts, but Emma Culver Roberts did admit to conspiracy to supply sherbet and cannabis, so the guilty plea works in her favour. For the sake of continuing this story, we're no longer going to reference Andrew Jenkins because not only did he admit guilt, he has been remanded into custody and he has sought to improve his life. As far as I'm concerned, he is doing his part to pay back his debt to society. Of course, that debt may also be part of a Proceeds of Crime Act, in the form of reparations that may well impact him in the future. As there isn't too much to go on concerning the trial itself, I'm going to go now to the sentences for everyone. Stephen Leyson was jailed for 11 years for conspiracy to supply sherbet and received concurrent sentences of 7 years for possession of a firearm, 4 years for conspiracy to supply cannabis, and 12 months for possession of criminal property. Concurrent means they run at the same time. I do not support concurrent sentences. So his sentence should in fact be 23 years in an ISO queue. At the age of 55, do enjoy, we do not give people early release for good behaviour. Samson Leyson was handed a 6-year sentence for conspiracy to supply sherbet and 18 months running also concurrently for conspiracy to supply cannabis. Having pled guilty, Richie Coleman was jailed for 2 years and 4 months for conspiracy to supply sherbet and 1 year also concurrent for conspiracy to supply cannabis. He received no separate penalty for producing cannabis and possessing amphetamine. It should be noted, in the case of Andrew Jenkins, even though I said I wouldn't mention it, he has been in prison since the start of September and should be released by now to serve the rest of his license in the community. I do believe something similar may well come into effect for Richie Coleman, who I think was also held on remand since his arrest in 2021. Emma Culver Roberts was sentenced to 2 years for conspiracy to supply sherbet, suspended for 2 years, and a concurrent suspended sentence of 8 months for cannabis. She must also complete 30 days of a rehabilitation activity requirement and 150 hours of unpaid work. She was sentenced at the same time as Lynn Leyson. Lynn Leyson was sentenced to 9 years. But this is where it gets interesting, because she didn't turn up for sentencing. What's additionally interesting is Lynn Leyson was the one running the entire operation. She was the dominant force in this gang. She had been controlling a number of people and directing events from what is considered the farm. At time of recording, on the 4th of October 2023, Lynn Leyson, from being sentenced in August, is still on the run. To the point, her face is now on the UK's most wanted list. Lynn Leyson had failed 3 times to attend court for her sentencing. That is a deliberate attempt to evade justice. She was obviously sentenced in absence, and if you get bored, by all means go to the Crime Stopper charity's most wanted list. Her face is there. The Leyson's family finances are going to be examined as part of a Proceeds of Crime Act investigation, which will include a number of high-valued personal items seized during the search of the farm, like the sherbet. If she is found, of course, I will make a little short on the Halls of Injustice YouTube channel, of course to inform you that the silly bitch is in prison where she belongs. Speaking afterwards, the Welsh Police Detective Chief Inspector Rhys Jones said the Leyson family are an organised crime group who tried to make a quick buck by selling large quantities of sherbet and cannabis to sub-dealers across southwest Wales. We hope this case sends a clear message that we are continuously working to disrupt the supply of illegal substances in our force area, and will prosecute anyone who tries to spread their misery through our communities for financial gain. Based on your logic and reasoning, I highly recommend you go after pretty much every retailer in the country, because they've been peddling misery for years by jacking up their prices.